soon after you left, and we came here, more people left.
Yeah,
and
so
they consolidated.
By now, a lot of the staff that we had worked with is no longer there 8 years later. But there were a couple of people still working there, and then they got laid off because the new company wants to bring in new management. So it was like, oh, that old place.
Well, it's weird. It's weird to see people that were there when we were there. I mean, one of the things that I don't know if everyone thinks this way, but like, I like to leave a place before it closes down. I don't want to be the last person in the office that's packing up and turning the lights off.
I like to stay after the
and then trash the place.
Down. Yeah, keep showing up for work when like the power's out.
Throw eggs out the window
until my desk gets chopped up for firewood. That's how I like to stay in a job.
But having people as you're leaving. Well, you had the HR department gave you a whole like in your.
Oh, I did an exit interview.
Yeah, which was partially what was she saying to you?
I don't remember.
She was asking you about like why are you going to China?
Well, no, but she said something about like. She was asking me about stuff about what that could be improved, and I mentioned some stuff that could be improved, but she's like, but you're not leaving for another newspaper job, so it's not like you weren't unhappy here. You're moving to China. Like, no, but I'm moving to China because I don't like the whole industry.
Yeah.
I mean, she was for whatever reason, she was dismissing all my concerns because I wasn't going to get a job like that job. And my thought was like, I disliked this job, but in the end, like when I started, it was a great job. But in the end, I really disliked so much about that company that I was like, I'm never getting a job like this again. I have to move to China. And she didn't see that.
Right. But the idea of that industry itself, there's lots of other industries like that back home that are just, I mean, how long are you going to keep grinding it into it till you are the last person throwing your desk on the firewood? Yeah. And not that we were thinking about that 8 years ago, of just like, we got to get the hell out of here before the whole place goes down.
Yeah.
But it is strange to like see that out of the woodwork.
Yeah, I mean, it's not closed, it's just bought by another company.
The last of the people are leaving, but the thinking about like if we were both of us still working there, I mean, we say 8 years, but that's only 8 years.
Yeah.
As long as we worked there anyways. If I was living in New York right now, with that same experience, working in papers, we couldn't afford to live there anymore. Like, that would be over. That, move back home with your parents kind of thing.
Or move to New Jersey.
Or and work at some kind of little gazette or something until that one dies. Like.
Well, I think it's no less than, like, what, do you want to have a job? Capitalism is the worst. Because it is, like, I went into journalism because I liked telling stories, and no one's going to pay you to do creative things that you like. But the closest things for an English major are either journalism or advertising, and I was not going to go into advertising. And then, like, working in journalism, I did learn a lot, and I had a lot of great opportunities, but it wasn't, like, getting me any closer to doing the thing that I wanted to do, or even figuring that out. I may have said this before on the podcast, but before I started working for the paper, I was writing a lot for myself. I don't know if they were any good or whatever, but I was writing a lot of fiction that I liked, and I was pursuing that. And then the day I started was the day I stopped writing for myself, and I really never got back to it until after we left.
Same here.
And, you know, whatever. I had a job, and that was great.
Yeah, and you learned some professional level skills and stuff. And there's
a certain amount of people out in the world who would say, like, what, who needs art? Why are you going to make art?
Well, that's the main
And that's
problem.
the problem.
Because I have the same thing.
Because I
As
don't like
writing, like I'm a graphic artist, so I'm getting that job because I do art. I take colors and shapes and I make them look interesting. And the only way to do that is working in advertising and journalism and the same kind of stuff. So like that's what all the creative people that get stuck in those jobs have to do is like, and next thing you know, you're reporting on like either you're doing stories of like how horrible the world is or how shallow the world is.
Right.
Like you're doing fashion or politics or something that just like, and at the end of the day, you're going home and going like, well, I didn't kill myself today, like, but I'm not doing any art when I get home either.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you get to sneak in the stuff you care about every once in a while.
Those little battles that keep it going to next week.
Yeah, but then you also have to write roundups of which celebrities published books this week.
Yeah, yeah. The amount of like
true story.
the amount of stuff that I knew about the fashion world and celebrities and terrible sides of music that like there's no reason I should know any of this, but I could sit in a conversation and talk about like what happened on fashion movie runways this week.
Yeah.
I don't want to have that in my head.
Well, and I remember being a young punk of like, are we making the world worse by like the news itself is important and good reporting is important. Digesting important complex issues down into a 200-word story, is that making things worse? And I would argue yes. And I would argue that yes, the world is worse than it was.
Well, when those stories have gone down for that size of a story in a paper and then in a smaller paper that you can read in 20 minutes on the subway, to something that you can zip by on your phone, to I just need the quick bites that I can flip through at this point. Like I'm not reading full stories. Like I'm just reading headlines and like the first paragraph. And the last paragraph.
If art is a commodity and information is a commodity, then
but that's our information. That's the stuff people want to read is stuff that they're flipping through and not getting the actual like art that you want to do. The stories that are, I mean, even those get pushed off.
And well, that's like, so for the people making it, that sucks, and for the people consuming it, they're not being challenged and they're not being fed good, healthy, they're getting junk food. Stories. Yeah, good, healthy stories. You need 8 good, healthy stories a day.
have a carrot story, a basil story.
And yeah, so I don't know. I mean, not so... I've been so gloom and doom today, but there's things about the world that are good, but the media landscape is objectively more terrible than it used to be.
I mean, this is...
And that's not what we really wanted to get into all again. What more for us, so like moving to China was like a kind of reckless, like burn it all down, start over again move. But it did enable us, what we knew we would get out of it was the stability of income, because we knew like our services were in demand, and actually being who we are, we're going to luck into jobs that provide a nice salary, and also those jobs don't take that much time. And so it like we will get to then like relax a little bit into a life that we enjoy.
Well, I certainly, as much as I was aware of things like composting back in New York City, there wasn't like any time that I had to, or money to even think about anything like that. Like doing anything back in our old life in America was just a matter of like getting through it and getting by. Yeah. All the time. No matter how much of a paycheck I was earning, like it was still, everything was just you have to get everyone else's work done, and then you don't have anything else left.
As a famous politician said in New York City, the rent is too damn high.
Yeah.
But yeah, so here we did find a situation that lets us not do that. And I think there are days when I wake up and go, we have no health insurance in a way that would be recognizable in America. We do have catastrophe insurance, and healthcare is relatively cheap.
But if we continued on our path without doing this,
I would not have made the other choice.
We would not actually have a job or health insurance or anything right now.
Yeah, and
we'd be out of jobs.
And I feel like some of that old life has conditioned me in bad moments to question, like, yeah, but is what you're making any good? You love what you're doing, and it feels good to do it, but what's that worth? Like, that should be worth everything. That's the thing that's important.
Well, certainly, I mean, our bosses would, even if you were doing something good on the clock, that you were just like, this is going to be good, this is really going to help this article.
Yeah.
And they say, like, cut that all out.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, I don't want to go too hard on them.
Well, I mean, on that paper in particular, I mean, I worked at a bunch of places, and they were all very exciting places to start with. Even working for the Ninja Turtles. Like, I worked for the Ninja Turtles for like the half a decade. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, the pressures of working in a cool place and an upcoming new company that's doing something exciting is really, really hard on everybody.
Well, and the nature of doing work for someone else is that ultimately you're fulfilling their vision.
Yeah.
Which, at a certain point, seems like we only get this one life.
Right.
Sometimes it seems endless, but like 70 years is nothing in comparison to the whole history of the universe. Would you spend time making another person happy? Which is maybe the most selfish way to put that. But like, why would you devote so much of yourself to making something for somebody else, for making profit for somebody else, for fulfilling someone else's vision? That doesn't, and if that's what makes you, if that's fulfilling to you, then that's okay. But if I didn't find it fulfilling.
So that's where the
so I come back to, what, am I gonna have a job?
The freedom, but also the fear of what we've done being here at this point is at the same time terrifying and yet vindicated, all like in the span of a couple of days.
Because some of those fears we would have had anyway, of like getting hit by a bus as a fear. That's just like, that's part of living in a world with buses.
No more buses.
And that's a control issue that again, living in China has helped me really accept, like, I have much less control over things than I had thought. And so in a mindfulness way of like, once you recognize that control is an illusion, you can let go of that suffering when you feel like things are getting out of control. When you start from a place of like, things are out of control, that's actually like way easier to deal with.
I was just reading in Peter Hessler's Oracle Bones book. He was talking to a Chinese friend of his that was saying, this was like during, like right after 9/11, and they were talking about how economy is going to be affected by this, and his friend had said, like, yeah, no, the Chinese have a saying that, like, I forget what the exact quote is, but it's something like, you're only poor if the person living next door to you is rich.
Sluggishness, lack of energy, the belief that nothing is real, and all of the choices that you've made in life have no meaning. You're suffering from an EC, or existential crisis. There is no hope for an EC. The growing void will claim us all. But you can lie on the floor for a few days and see what that's like. When you're bored of all that despair, have some cake. Or don't have some cake. Nothing matters.
EC is not a real recognized abbreviation for existential crisis, because nothing is real, and therefore the act of recognition is a trick of the mind imposed by the desire to perceive all interaction through the lens of time and space. All we can truly know is the current moment, and that's already over. Talk to your doctor if you think that will help.
Oh yeah, I like that.